Good afternoon, students. Now we'll continue with the intestine chapter. The topic today is the inflammatory bowel disease. Chronic inflammatory conditions resulting from activation of the mucosal immune system. So inflammatory bowel disease is a chronic inflammatory condition. It is occurring due to activation of the mucosal immune system. It includes Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. The etiopathogenesis is genetic susceptibility, where there is HLA association. Then role of intestinal flora. Then abnormal T cell responses. The diagnosis of IBD can be done based on the clinical history, radiographic findings, lab findings and pathological examination. So now first we'll deal with Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is also known as regional enteritis, granulomatous colitis or terminal ileitis. It is common in the second and third decade, common in females, common in Jews, and the risk factor is smoking. It is a systemic inflammatory disease, which affects the GIT predominantly. So it is a systemic disease which can involve the other parts of the body also, but predominantly it affects the GI tract. The site it affects GIT from the esophagus to the anus. That is, the terminal ileum, ileocecal wall and the cecum are the commonest sites affected. The clinical features are fever, abdominal pain, intermittent attacks of diarrhea, occult or overt blood loss in stools, and in between there will be asymptomatic intervals. The patient will have all the symptoms and suddenly he will be asymptomatic. Then again he will develop symptoms. So this is a systemic inflammatory disease. Other than GI tract, it will affect other systems also, but predominantly it affects the GI tract and involves the entire GIT starting from the esophagus to the anus, can involve anywhere. The clinical features of fever, abdominal pain, discomfort, diarrhea, occult blood loss or overt blood loss, and in between asymptomatic periods. The patient will have anemia, fluid and electrolyte loss, weight loss, weakness, strictures, fistulas, protein losing enteropathy, and above all malabsorption. So these will be all the symptoms of the patient of Crohn's. He will have anemia, fluid and electrolyte loss, weight loss, weakness. Then there may be development of strictures and fistulas, loss of proteins because of loss of mucus in the stools, and because of the involvement of the intestinal wall there will be malabsorption. Then as it is a systemic disease, there are extra-intestinal manifestations also. Other than GIT, they can be GIT manifestations. They can be migratory polyarthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, erythema nodosum, clubbing, uveitis and amyloidosis. So these are all extra-intestinal manifestations of Crohn's disease. So grossly, how will the intestine appear? The serosa is dull and granular with creeping fat appearance. So the serosa will be dull and granular, and the mesentery will be thickened, edematous and fibrotic. The wall of the intestine is thickened and the lumen is narrowed. On the X-ray, we can see a string sign, that is narrowing of the lumen. Then skip lesions are seen. Skip lesions means there is involved area, then followed by uninvolved area, then again uninvolved area. The lesions are not continuous, so that is why they are known as skip lesions. Then there will be aphthous linear ulcers. So there will be ulceration, then again normal area, normal mucosa, then again ulceration. So this will give an cobblestone appearance. So grossly, the intestine will have a cobblestone appearance on the mucosa. The wall is thickened with the lumen narrowed, the string sign on X-ray, and skip lesions are seen, that is not continuous involvement of the intestine. The mesentery will be thickened, fibrotic and edematous, and the serosa will be dull and granular. So these are all the gross changes seen in the Crohn's disease. Hope all of you it is clear. Yes. Then coming to the microscopy. In microscopy, there will be mucosal inflammation with ulceration in the mucosa. The chronic mucosal damage will occur with villus blunting in the small intestine, crypts show branching, irregularity, pyloric metaplasia, Paneth cell metaplasia. So mucosal inflammation, mucosal ulceration, chronic mucosal damage, then transmural inflammation. There will be inflammation in all the layers of the intestine. Because of this inflammation, there will be thickening and of the wall. That will cause narrowing of the lumen of the intestine, and there will be string sign on X-ray. And already we have discussed there are skip lesions, that is alternate areas will be, some areas will be normal, some areas will be involved, and there will be non-caseating granulomas. So there will be granuloma formation in the wall of the intestine, but these are non-caseating granulomas. Where will you find caseating granulomas? Yes, tuberculosis. Then in this Crohn's disease there will be lot of fibrosis also, and then increased risk of cancer in ulcerative colitis in Crohn's disease, but it is comparatively less than ulcerative colitis. Okay, so gross appearance of the Crohn's disease we have seen, yes, that is creeping fat appearance on the serosa, then string sign on X-ray, skip lesions, and cobblestone appearance of the mucosa. On microscopy, inflammation of the mucosa, chronic mucosal damage, then metaplasia, irregular branching of the crypts, transmural inflammation, non-caseating granulomas, and fibrosis. So all these changes will be seen on microscopy in a case of Crohn's disease. And there is risk of malignancy also, but it is less than that of ulcerative colitis. So with this we finish the topic of Crohn's disease. Yes, hope it is clear to all of you. Yes. Now next inflammatory bowel disease is ulcerative colitis. It is an ulcero-inflammatory disease limited to the colon. See, Crohn's disease was involving the entire GIT, whereas ulcerative colitis is limited only to the colon, and it is affecting the layers mucosa and submucosa only, whereas Crohn's disease was involving the entire layers of the wall. Okay, mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, serosa, all were involved there. Here only mucosa and submucosa, and that too only of the colon region. And the age group is again 20 to 25 years of age, and here it is non-smokers. Over there it was smokers, right? Clinical features will be mucoid diarrhea with blood in the stools, lower abdominal pain, cramps, asymptomatic intervals again can occur in between. The patient may present with serious bleeding, fluid and electrolyte imbalance. Okay, so the clinical features are almost the same in both the inflammatory bowel disease with asymptomatic intervals in between. The site involved is mainly the rectum, and it extends from the rectum in a retrograde fashion, that is backward fashion, to involve the entire colon. It is known as pancolitis. So clinical features, then site. Whereas in the Crohn's it was involving the GIT from esophagus till the anus, but commonly the ileal region. But here in ulcerative colitis the region involved is the rectum, and it extends upwards and involves the entire colon. Okay, and here in the ulcerative colitis there are no skip lesions. Sometimes there may be involvement of ileum, though it is restricted to the colon. Few centimeters of ileum may be involved when the entire colon is involved. Pancolitis is there, sometimes few centimeters of the ileum can be also involved in ulcerative colitis. It is known as backwash ileitis. The mucosa in ulcerative colitis will be red, granular and friable. It bleeds very easily. Okay. On microscopy there will be ulceration of the mucosa, and the ulceration will be continuous. There is no skip lesions here like Crohn's. In between there may be regenerating mucosa which will form pseudopolyps, and damage to the muscularis propria and neural plexus may occur because of the inflammation. This will lead to toxic megacolon. So the neural plexus may be damaged, and that will lead to megacolon. Enlargement or dilatation of the colon may occur. It is known as toxic megacolon. one more megacolon we had already discussed. What was that? Congenital aganglionic megacolon. That is Hirschsprung's disease. Okay, that was different. Please don't get confused. This is toxic megacolon. Toxic megacolon is due to the damage occurring in ulcerative colitis to the neural plexus. Okay, and in ulcerative colitis, progression to dysplasia and frank carcinoma is very, very common. Whereas response to surgery is also very good in ulcerative colitis. So, in ulcerative colitis, the microscopic features ulceration, which is continuous, no skip lesions, and regenerating mucosa forming pseudopolyps, toxic megacolon, dysplasia, and malignancy can develop, and response to surgery is very, very good. Complications are toxic megacolon, perianal fistula, development of malignancy, bleeding, and perforation. So, these are all the complications of ulcerative colitis. So now, after discussing about both the diseases, let us discuss the differences between Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Both are very, very important diseases. They can come as a long question for you all, or even as a short question individually. And the differences between the two also can come as a short note. Okay, so Crohn's disease can involve any part of the GI tract, but commonly it is the ileum. Whereas ulcerative colitis, it involves the colon. Pattern in Crohn's disease, it is the skip lesions. Yes, in between normal areas will be there, and again involved areas will be there. The next is ulcerative colitis, where there will be diffuse continuous involvement. There are no skip lesions. Then stricture. Early stricture formation will be seen in Crohn's disease because there is narrowing of the lumen here, okay? And late stricture formation in ulcerative colitis. Intestinal wall will be thickened because there is transmural inflammation and fibrosis. Whereas in ulcerative colitis, it is involving only the mucosa and submucosa. So, they will be thinning out of the wall. Intestinal dilatation is absent in Crohn's disease, but it is present in ulcerative colitis. Why dilatation is occurring? Because of toxic megacolon. Then progression is antegrade in Crohn's. That is from upwards it is coming down. Whereas ulcerative colitis, it is starting in the rectum and it is going backwards. Okay, so these are the gross differences between Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. The site, the pattern of involvement, the stricture formation, intestinal wall, intestinal dilatation, and progression. Yes, ma, all of you, hope it is clear? Yes? Then next we will go to the microscopy. So in Crohn's disease, ulceration will be deep, whereas in ulcerative colitis, it is superficial. Then pseudopolyps are usually absent in Crohn's disease, but in ulcerative colitis, this regenerating mucosa will form the pseudopolyps. Lymphoid reaction is marked in Crohn's disease because there is formation of granulomas and transmural inflammation, whereas in ulcerative colitis, it is mild lymphoid reaction. Fibrosis is again marked in Crohn's disease. Serositis is also marked in Crohn's disease because all the layers are being involved, whereas it is mild lymphoid reaction, mild fibrosis is seen in ulcerative colitis, and serositis is usually absent in ulcerative colitis because it is usually involving only the mucosa and submucosa. Then coming to granulomas, non-caseating microgranulomas are seen in Crohn's disease. There are no granulomas in ulcerative colitis. Fistula and sinus formation is also seen in Crohn's disease, not in ulcerative colitis. So these are all the microscopic differences between Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Then coming to the clinical features. Fat and vitamin malabsorption is present in Crohn's, absent in ulcerative. Malignant potential is present in both. It is less in Crohn's, more in ulcerative colitis. And response to surgery is very poor in Crohn's, but it is very good in ulcerative colitis. So this is about the inflammatory bowel diseases, which is an important topic for you all. Yes, hope it is clear. Yes, this is a picture of ulcerative colitis on the left side, where you can see the involvement starting here in the rectum and progressing up to involve the entire colon. Whereas in Crohn's disease, it is in the ileal region and it can extend downwards, and there are skip lesions. These red areas are the abnormal areas and in between this white areas are the normal areas. So these are the skip lesions, whereas this is continuous involvement of the colon without any skip areas. Okay. And on microscopy, on Crohn's disease, there will be transmural inflammation of the entire wall, and formation of non-caseating microgranulomas here. Okay. Ulcerative colitis is only superficially involving the mucosa and submucosa with inflammation there. Sometimes crypt abscess formation also seen. The next topic is this is another short note for you all. What are the hereditary cancer syndromes of the colon? So in this you have to write about familial adenomatous polyposis. Already we have discussed, right, about familial adenomatous polyposis in the previous class. Yes, the classical type, attenuated type, Gardner-Sturt syndrome. Yes. So these familial adenomatous polyposis, again they are autosomal dominant and they have mutation of the FAP gene. Yes, or APC gene, adenomatous polyposis coli. And here there will be risk of malignancy. And another condition also we have discussed, that is HNPCC, that is hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer syndrome or Lynch syndrome. It is autosomal dominant, it is early onset and usually right colon, non-aggressive despite mucinous histology, and it is associated with germline mutations in the DNA repair genes, that is microsatellite instability. In addition to the intestinal carcinomas, there will be extracolonic carcinomas like in the stomach, small intestine, endometrium, ovary and urinary bladder. So hereditary cancer syndromes are familial adenomatous polyposis and HNPCC. Here it is hereditary non-polyposis. There is no polyps. First one is polyp, second one is non-polyposis syndrome. In the second one there is mutations of the DNA repair genes known as microsatellite instability. In addition to the GI tract cancers, there will be intestinal colorectal cancer, there will be malignancies in the stomach or small intestine or endometrium, ovary or urinary bladder also. Okay. So with this we finish the hereditary cancer syndromes of the colon. The next topic is colorectal carcinogenesis. We will discuss it in the next video.